Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. All power is of God, all power is of God. What is not of Him has no power to do anything. Miracles are seen in light, miracles are seen in light. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. Well, thank you all so much for joining me here on April Fool's Day, April the 1st of 2024. I'm Miracle Willie, forgiveness teacher from the Ozarks. And the only fooling going on around that I know of is what the ego does, which is plenty. So let's become aware of its, we're going to learn about its dynamics today, of its trickery. But our lesson 92 in A Course in Miracles, published by Foundation for Inner Peace. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. The idea for today is an extension of the previous one. You do not think of light in terms of strength and darkness in terms of weakness. That is because your idea of what seeing means is tied up with the body and its eyes and brain. Thus you believe that you can change what you see by putting little bits of glass before your eyes. This is among the many magical beliefs that come from the conviction you are a body, and the body's eyes can see. You also believe the body's brain can think. If you but understood the nature of thought, you could but laugh at this insane idea that the brain can think. He says is an insane idea that's so insane or childish or foolish. There's an April Fool's Day. We would laugh at it. If you but understood the nature of thought, you could but laugh at this insane idea that the body's brain can think. A lot of near-deathers that didn't have a brain to think when they died, they were more alive, more aware, more thinking than ever, than they could ever remember. It is as if you thought you held the match that lights the sun and gives it all its warmth, or that you held the world within your hand, securely bound until you let it go. Yet this is no more foolish than to believe the body's eyes can see, the brain can think. It is God's strength in you that is the light in which you see, as it is His mind with which you think. His strength denies your weakness. It is your weakness that sees through the body's eyes, peering about in darkness to behold the likeness of itself, the small, the weak, the sickly, and the dying, those in need, the helpless and afraid, the sad, the poor, the starving, and the joyless. These are seen through eyes that cannot see and cannot bless. Strength overlooks these things by seeing past appearances. It keeps its steady gaze upon the light that lies beyond them. It unites with light of which it is a part. It sees itself. It brings the light in which yourself appears. In darkness you perceive a self that is not there. Strength is the truth about you. Weakness is an idol, falsely worshipped and adored, that strength may be dispelled, and darkness rule where God appointed that there should be light. Strength comes from truth, and shines with light its source has given it. Weakness reflects the darkness of its maker. It is sick and looks on sickness, which is like itself. Truth is a savior and can only will for happiness and peace for everyone. It gives its strength to everyone who asks, in limitless supply. It sees that lack in anyone would be lack in all. Wow, strength sees that lack in anyone would be lack in all. That's why we all have to make it to heaven together. It sees that lack in anyone would be lack in all. And so it gives its light that all may see and benefit as one. Its strength is shared, that it may bring to all the miracle in which they will unite in purpose and forgiveness and in love. Weakness, which looks in darkness, cannot see a purpose in forgiveness and in love. It sees all others different from itself, and nothing in the world that it would share. It judges and condemns, but does not love. In darkness it remains to hide itself, and dreams that it is strong in conquering, a victor over limitations that but grow in darkness to enormous size. It fears and it attacks and hates itself, and darkness covers everything it sees, leaving its dreams as fearful as itself. No miracles are here, but only hate. It separates itself from what it sees, while light and strength perceive themselves as one. The light of strength is not the light you see. It does not change and flicker and go out. It does not shift from night to day and back to darkness till the morning comes again. The light of strength is constant, sure as love, forever glad to give itself away, because it cannot give but to itself. It sees itself in everyone. The light of strength, light and love, warmth, all to go together. The light of strength is constant, sure as love, forever glad to give itself away, because it cannot give but to itself. No one can ask in vain to share its sight, and none who enters its abode can leave without a miracle before his eyes, and strength and light abiding in his heart. The strength in you will offer you the light, and guide your seeing, so you do not dwell on idle shadows that the body's eyes provide for self-deception. Strength and light unite in you, and where they meet, yourself stands ready to embrace you as its own. Such is the meeting place we try today to find and rest in. For the peace of God is where yourself, His Son, is waiting now to meet itself again and be as one. So the little self, the imaginary self really, but the perception of yourself is we're going to come into these quiet times to link up with our true self, our higher self. That's what Yogananda called self-realization. So and he says, let us give 20 minutes twice today to join this meeting. Let yourself be brought unto yourself. Let yourself, the small self, not capitalized S, reach the capitalized S, the one that's connected with God, the Christ in you. Its strength will be the light in which the gift of sight is given you. Let's read that again. Let us give 20 minutes twice today to join this meeting. Let yourself be brought unto yourself. Its strength will be the light in which the gift of sight is given you. Leave then the dark a little while today, and we will practice seeing in the light, closing the body's eyes and asking truth to show us how to find the meeting place of self and self, lowercase self and uppercase self. It is the way it's spelled here. Leave then the dark a little while today, and we will practice seeing in the light, closing the body's eyes and asking truth to show us how to find the meeting place of self and self, where light and strength are one. Morning and evening we will practice thus. After the morning meeting, we will use the day in preparation for the time at night when we will meet again in trust. Let us repeat as often as we can the idea for today, and recognize that we are being introduced to sight, and led away from darkness to the light, where only miracles can be perceived. Okay, well, we'll come back and review that briefly at the end. Let's go take a look at our text reading. We are ready for the dynamics of the ego, and that's where I got the latter part of this song. So all power is of God. What is not of him has no power to do anything. The dynamics of the ego, chapter 11, God or the ego, Roman numeral 5, the dynamics of the ego. And let's see what's going on around the world. As I said, it's April Fool's Day. Assyrian New Year, also known as the head of the year or the beginning of spring. Akitu is how it's the word in Assyrian. And yesterday I told you the Aramaic word. Well, it's also the Assyrian word. And so let's use that same word for peace today. It's spoken in Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. And it's Shlamaa. So that'd be a good one for us to keep down and know. Shlamaa. So peace be with you. Shlamaa be with you. Dyngus Day. Dyngus is a Polish end of Lent holiday, and it's known as, the word Dyngus means worthy. So we're worthy, the worthy day. I like that. Easter Monday, day after Easter. Edible Book Day. Fossil Fuels Day. Save the Environment Day is another way you could think of that. It's Fun at Work Day. I always say everybody ought to do what they enjoy doing as your profession. International Tatting Day. Tatting is using loops and knots in string to make designs and collars and whatnot. Handcrafts. Library Snapshot Day. Lupus Alert Day. Miles Day. Miles is celebrated in Ireland. He was an Irish author. His name was Brian O'Nolans, and he had a lot of wit and humor, I guess. It says it's a day for wit and humor with a pint of Guinness. Miles was one of his characters. National Atheist Day. Surprise, there is a God. April Fools. National Fun Day. National Jump in Muddy Puddles Day. National Love for Our Children Day. National 1 Cent Day. National Sourdough Bread Day. National Trombone Players Day. Peeps Day, those Easter candies. Poetry and the Creative Mind Day. Reading is Funny Day. Basically teach your children that it's fun to read. Saint Stupid Day is a San Francisco parade today called the Saint Stupid Parade. U.S. Air Force Academy Day. It began on this day in 1954, just north of Colorado Springs. And then Tater Day. At the Ipamea batatas, your sweet potatoes. Yesterday was your Irish potato day, or your Solanum tuberosus. But today is the Ipamea batata, and I've got one here. I just wanted to show this to you. I got this started. It was one of them. Was one of my sweet potatoes I grew last year that was starting to grow. So I just put it in a pot, and here in about a month, these will be quite a bit bigger, and I'll pull them off. Each leaf can be a new plant, and whether you take just a leaf or take a little clipping, but just put them in dirt or water, they'll root, and you'll be able to plant them within about 2 weeks after you root them. Okay, let's see what else. In edible landscaping, we've got the Meader American Persimmon, which is a Diospyros virginiana. Meader American Persimmon, very early ripening, about September through November at the nursery, which is Zone 7, Virginia. Extremely cold hardy, originally from Rochester, New Hampshire. Self-fertile, some fruits seedless. Native American variety. Pumpkin orange colored fruits are 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter. Originally from New Hampshire, spaced 10-foot to 12-foot circles, zones 4 through 8. And then in Permaculture for Beginners by Carrie Mitchell, Chapter 5, Plant Placement. Her next section is about guilds. Guilds are groups of plants placed in close proximity to one another to create mutually beneficial interactions between them. Nature works this way. There are many guild combinations for the studious permaculture gardener to research. One such guild is the Three Sisters of the Iroquois: corn, beans, and squash. Beans provide nitrogen to the guild, corn provides a vertical frame for the beans to climb, and squash covers the ground, suppressing competing weeds and protecting the soil and helping to retain ground moisture. And then, of course, also beans and grains together are a complete protein. Throw in some squash and you got a full belly. Okay, let's take a look now at our text reading. And take with you today, miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. The dynamics of the ego. No one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them, for not looking is the way they are protected. There is no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. We are ready to look more closely at the ego's thought system because together we have the lamp that will dispel it. And since you realize you do not want it, you must be ready. Is that how you feel? You don't want your ego? You want to live according to the truth of your real identity, the identity God gave you. Let us be calm in doing this, for we're merely looking honestly for truth. The dynamics, and that's in quotes because there's no real dynamics, the dynamics of the ego will be our lesson for a while, for we must look first at this and see beyond it. Since you have made it real, we will undo this error quietly together and then look beyond it to truth. 2. What is healing but the removal of all that stands in the way of knowledge? And how else can one dispel illusions except by looking at them directly, without protecting them? Be not afraid, therefore, for what you will be looking at is the source of fear, and you are beginning to learn that fear is not real. You are also learning that its effects can be dispelled merely by denying their reality. The next step is obviously to recognize that what has no effects does not exist. Laws do not operate in a vacuum, and what leads to nothing has not happened. If reality is recognized by its extension, what leads to nothing could not be real. Do not be afraid then to look upon fear, for it cannot be seen. Clarity undoes confusion by definition, and to look upon darkness through light must dispel it. Let us begin this lesson in ego dynamics by understanding that the term itself does not mean anything. That word ego dynamics, that phrase was in quotes because it's a misnomer. It can't be real, but it can be real in the world that we live in because we made it real and we believe in what we make. So let us begin this lesson in ego dynamics by understanding that the term itself does not mean anything. It contains the very contradiction in terms that makes it meaningless. Dynamics implies the power to do something, and the whole separation fallacy lies in the belief that the ego has power to do anything. The ego is fearful to you because you believe this, yet the truth is very simple. All power is of God. What is not of Him has no power to do anything. And we included that in our psalm because it went so well, and it's what we're reading today. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. All power is of God. What is not of Him has no power to do anything. We will look at the ego then. When we look at the ego, then, we are not considering dynamics, but delusions. You can surely regard a delusional system without fear, for it cannot have any effect if its source is not real. Fear becomes more obviously inappropriate if you recognize the ego's goal, which is so clearly senseless that any effort on its behalf is necessarily expended on nothing. The ego's goal is quite explicitly ego autonomy. From the beginning, then, its purpose is to separate, sufficient unto itself and independent of any power except its own. This is why it is the symbol of separation. Every idea has a purpose, and its purpose is always the natural outcome of what it is. Everything that stems from the ego is the natural outcome of its central belief, and the way to undo its results is merely to recognize that their source is not natural, being out of accord with your true nature. I said before that to will, contrary to God, is wishful thinking and not real willing. His will is one because the extension of His will cannot be unlike itself. The real conflict you experience then is between the ego's idle wishes and the will of God, which you share. Can this be a real conflict? Yours is the independence of creation, not of autonomy. Your whole creative function lies in your complete dependence on God, whose function He shares with you. By His willingness to share it, He became as dependent on you as you are on Him. Do not ascribe the ego's arrogance to Him who wills not to be independent of you. He has included you in His autonomy. Can you believe that autonomy is meaningful apart from Him? The belief in ego autonomy is costing you the knowledge of your dependence on God, in which your freedom lies. The ego sees all dependency as threatening and has twisted even your longing for God into a means of establishing itself. But do not be deceived by its interpretation of your conflict. 7. The ego always attacks on behalf of separation. Believing it has the power to do this, it does nothing else because its goal of autonomy is nothing else. The ego is totally confused about reality, but it does not lose sight of its goal. It is much more vigilant than you are because it is perfectly certain of its purpose. You're confused because you do not recognize your purpose. You must recognize that the last thing the ego wishes you to realize is that you are afraid of it. For if the ego could give rise to fear, it would diminish your independence and weaken your power. Yet its one claim to your allegiance is that it can give power to you. Without this belief, you would not listen to it at all. How then can its existence continue if you realize that by accepting it, you are belittling yourself and depriving yourself of power? 9. The ego can and does allow you to regard yourself as supercilious, unbelieving, lighthearted, distant, emotionally shallow, callous, uninvolved, and even desperate, but not really afraid. Minimizing fear but not its undoing is the ego's constant effort, and is indeed a skill at which it is very ingenious. How can it preach separation without upholding it through fear? Would you listen to it if you recognize this is what it is doing? 10. Your recognition that whatever seems to separate you from God is only fear, regardless of the form it takes and quite apart from how the ego wants you to experience it, is therefore the basic ego threat. Its dream of autonomy is shaken to its foundation by this awareness. For though you may countenance a false idea of independence, you will not accept the cost of fear if you recognize it. Yet this is the cost, and the ego cannot minimize it. If you overlook love, you are overlooking yourself, and you must fear unreality because you have denied yourself. By believing that you have successfully attacked truth, you are believing that attack has power. Very simply, then, you have become afraid of yourself, and no one wants to find what he believes would destroy him. And the last paragraph we'll read for today, we're about halfway through this section. If the ego's goal of autonomy could be accomplished, God's purpose could be defeated, and this is impossible. Only by learning what fear is can you finally learn to distinguish the possible from the impossible and the false from the true. According to the ego's teaching, its goal can be accomplished and God's purpose cannot. According to the Holy Spirit's teaching, only God's purpose can be accomplished. And it is accomplished already. Okay, let's go back and look. I said we're going to review just a minute our lesson in 92. Miracles are seen in light and strength are one. In paragraph 9, the strength in you will offer you the light and guide your seeing so you do not dwell on idle shadows that the body's eyes provide for self-deception. Strength and light unite in you, and where they meet, yourself stands ready to embrace you as its own. Such is the meeting place we try today to find and rest in. For the peace of God is where yourself, His Son, is waiting now to meet itself again and be as one. Let us give 20 minutes twice today to join this meeting place. Let yourself be brought into yourself. Its strength will be the light in which the gift of sight is given you. Leave then the dark a little while today, and we will practice seeing in the light, closing the body's eyes and asking truth to show us how to find the meeting place of self and self. Little self and big self. Your higher self. Where light and strength are one. And morning and evening we will practice thus. After the morning meeting, we will use the day in preparation for the time at night when we will meet again in trust. Let us repeat as often as we can the idea for today and recognize that we are being introduced to sight and led away from darkness to the light where only miracles can be perceived. Okay, so you know what to do. 20 minutes morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and throughout the day, just kind of be anticipating that evening quiet time where your little self meets your higher self, where you sit in the quiet and ask God for strength. You might start with this little song. Miracles are seen in light, and strength are one. Miracles are seen in light, and strength are one. All power is of God, all power is of God. What is not of Him has no power to do anything. All power is of God. What is not of Him? All power is of God. All power is of God. What is not of Him has no power to do anything. Miracles are seen in light, and strength are one. Miracles are seen in light, and strength are one. Miracles are seen in light, and strength are one. All power is of God, all power is of God. What is not of Him has no power to do anything. Miracles are seen in light, and strength are one. Miracles are seen in light, and light and strength are one. And as they say in the Assyrian language, Shlamaa, for peace. Miracles are seen in light, and strength are one. Shlamaa.